So I wouldn't necessarily think this applies specifically to race. Think more so like your genes code for like characteristics. So of course like
Blonde hair, blue eyes,
yeah.
how tall you are.
It doesn't like, oh, because I have this gene, it automatically makes me black. That's not what that does. So to start off, we're going to talk about the history of genetics. This is probably one of my favorite people. This is Gregor Mendel. He was an Austrian monk, and he did an experiment over the course of 8 years, and it consisted of an experiment with pea plants. And so basically, with this experiment, he was able to find the basics of heredity. And within that, he found that the genes are passed down from one generation to the next. So this is an example. This is what his experiment kind of looked like. So across the top here are all of the dominant traits that were found within the pea plants. So if you were a tall plant, you were considered dominant, a round seed shape, yellow, and then the seed coloring of the coat would be green. Those are just like the main ones that people really talk about. And then for the recessive traits, on the bottom here would be short, a wrinkled seed shape, and then the seed color would be green, and then the coat would be white. Okay, so so over here, I'm gonna use this word over here just to show you what that one.
You need a marker?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so for an example, the dominant trait for a tall plant would be like how you would write the genotype, which is the letter for each gene or allele, would be a capital T, and that equals tall. And then lowercase would be short. So an example of this, so remember we talked about the words homozygous and heterozygous. So a dominant homozygous tall plant would be, so I'll write that, dominant homozygous and tall, that would be 2 capital T's. And then a tall plant in general, well, I'll be more specific. A heterozygous tall plant would be a big T and a little t. Do you all follow that? Does that make sense? Yes? No? Okay. So on your sheet of paper,
Oh, I get it.
you get it?
Yeah.
Okay. So on your sheet of paper, we're gonna do a quick concept check. So the first question will be, what would the genotype be for a wrinkled seed shape? And remember, the genotype is the letters. So for this situation, we'll use capital R for round and a lowercase r for wrinkled. And the question was, what is the genotype for wrinkled teeth? You don't have to answer, write them down, you can just shout it out to me if you.
Little r, little r.
What would little r be? Would that be wrinkled? But can you be more specific?
That would be a recessive homozygous.
Correct. Okay, so the second question is, what is the genotype for a round seed?
Dominant homozygous.
So
Big
what,
R.
so the genotype,
Oh, big R, big R.
correct. Can anyone else besides Nick give me the heterozygous genotype for a round seed shape?
Shut it out.
Both capital would be homozygous dominant.
Yeah,
Big R, little R.
Correct. Big R, little r would be for the round seed shape. So this is where we're gonna get more, we answered these questions already. You guys jumped ahead. So, but the next question would have been, what is the genotype for a dominant homozygous round wrinkled seed shape? Can anyone guess that? So, this right here would be considered a dihybrid cross. So you're crossing two traits together. So the first portion,
Big R, little R.
so it'd be big R, little r,
No, big R.
big R for round.
Yeah.
Correct. And so then what would it be for wrinkled?
Little R.
Yep. Correct.
What?
Good job. So then the last question for the concept check would be, what is the genotype for the heterozygous green seed? Okay, so we'll go back to see. So for the green,
big G, little G.
did you say big G, little g?
Yeah, and then that could be that.
Yes, that is correct. Well, no.
No, I meant for like, those could be like the genotype.
Yep, that's correct. Okay, so next we're gonna talk about Punnett squares. And pretty much these are a diagram that is used to help predict the outcomes of the particular crossing for whatever breed you're finding. And within these, you're able to find the ratio for each trait that you find. So in this box here, this would be considered a tall plant because it's two capital STs. So 25% of that generation would be tall. And then you have two sections that are both 25%, which would be the heterozygous, and they would also be considered tall. So 50% of that generation would be heterozygous tall. And then the last box here is 25%, and they would be homozygous recessive for short. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to solve a Punnett square. So the first step is simply just to make a box with 4 squares. So I'm going to draw it like this. Step 2 is to determine which traits you're gonna use to cross to find the next generation. So for this example, on the top, which is usually where you put the mother's traits, she is homozygous recessive for being short. So the cross that we're doing is little t, crossing with a heterozygous plant for being tall, and then that would be capital T, and then a lowercase t. So here would be the mother's traits, and you would just separate them. So one T would go here, and the other would go here, and then across the left-hand side would be the father's traits. And you would do the same thing, you would separate the traits, the letters I mean. So it would be a capital T here and a lowercase t. So then you pretty much take it box by box. So then you would multiply, well not multiply, but you bring them together. So this T would go here and then this one would come here. So in this first top left-hand box, you would have a capital T and a lowercase t, and then you would drag it over to this box, and then you bring this one down as well, and you would have another capital T and a lowercase t. And then you would do the same for going down to the left-hand box in the bottom, and then bringing this one over as well. So then you would have 2 lowercase t's, and then the same for the bottom right-hand box. You have 2 lowercase t's. So, does anyone know what Can someone break down the ratios for this?
50-50,
50-50, and what are those, genotypes?
50% tall, 50% short.
Correct.
Smart.
I did this with fruit flies.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Is everyone good with this concept? Alright.
I'm a fruit fly.
Okay, so now we're gonna take time from the PowerPoint. We're gonna work on a worksheet. Thought it was kind of cool. We found a SpongeBob worksheet that goes along with this. So you guys can work in groups if you like. You don't have to work by yourself. And you'll have about 15 minutes to work on all of these. And it's front and back side, and we'll go over the answers with you. Are you working? No, you're not working. Okay, you guys can start.